I'm giving Donald Trump a big old A+ for what happened on Friday in Alaska. Good morning. Happy Monday. Glad you're starting off the week with us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Now, you might sit there and say, oh, you're just kissing the ring and doing what you think. No. That is not what's going on here. The reason I'm giving Trump an A+ is not because anything substantial came out of that meeting on Friday, although I definitely would give him an A+ for when he flew the B-2 bomber over Putin's head while they were walking on the red carpet. That was fantastic. A little reminder to old bad Vlad that you screw with us, you're going to have real problems there, big guy. The reason I'm giving Trump an A+ is because there are further conversations now set to happen today at the White House, right? We're going to have Zelensky come to the White House. We will have many of the top leaders in Europe coming to the White House. The NATO Secretary General will be here as well. They are all set to meet today with the President of the United States. There are actual conversations happening that gives peace a chance, that gives this war a chance to come to some kind of conclusion. The bloodshed, after 3.5 years, has a chance to finally come to an end. Conversations are continuing to try to make that happen. No, there's no ceasefire right now, and obviously that would have been great if Putin came out of that meeting and said, I've agreed to a ceasefire immediately with Ukraine. Didn't do it. That would have been awesome. Okay, we'll see what Zelensky has in mind today. We'll see what the European leaders have in mind today. We'll get to more of that throughout the morning. But the fact that the conversations are ongoing, we're further along than we've ever been. In 3.5 years of the worst war in Europe since World War II, that is something that we all should, regardless of your political party, I don't care if you voted for Trump or not. You can't say that these aren't steps in the right direction. Now, they may go nowhere. And there's no doubt there are some people that are lining this thing up today to blame Zelensky. They're going to line this thing up today and basically say, if Zelensky doesn't acquiesce to whatever's on the table, this is all Zelensky's fault. He deserves what's coming. He's gotten a bunch of U.S. help, and he's ungrateful. I'm not going to do that. I don't believe that's fair to do to this guy. He has been on the right side of history. Putin is an evil, awful man and one of the worst leaders in the planet's history. But at the same time, the way that Trump handled it, dealing with someone like that on Friday, was as good as you could have expected because now the conversations continue on. No one else has gotten to this point. So if nothing else, we're trending in the right direction. There's nothing not to like about this right now, John.
Well, that's funny. What about the other meeting? I thought they had another meeting because I'm reading here how Putin won and embarrassed Trump right here on our American soil.
I know. There was so much of that. So
it's
much
like
of
a whole
that.
different world. Isn't it?
I know. It's amazing. I mean, Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, he was on a bunch of shows yesterday. But listen to what he said on ABC to Martha Raddatz when she's like, what are Putin's concessions? Come on, what? He's like, you think I'm going to tell you?
Can you name any concessions that Vladimir Putin made during this meeting? Have any
I wouldn't name them on your program.
Have any concessions
I wouldn't name
been
them
asked?
on your program. Why would I do that?
Where is the
Well,
pressure?
of course, because you can't have a peace agreement. No, you can't have a peace agreement unless both sides give and get. You can't have a peace agreement unless both sides make concessions. That's a fact. That's true in virtually any negotiation. If not, it's just called surrender. And neither side is going to surrender. So both sides are going to have to make concessions. So, of course, concessions were asked. But what utility would there be of me going on a program and tell you we've wagged our finger at Putin and told him you must do this and you must do that? It's only going to make it harder and less likely that they're going to agree to these things. So these negotiations, as much as everyone would love it to be a live pay-per-view event, these discussions only work best when they are conducted privately in serious negotiations in which people who have to go back and respond to constituencies, because even totalitarian governments have constituencies they have to respond to. People have to go back and defend these agreements that they make, and so and figure out a way to explain them to people. So we need to create space for concessions to be made. But of course, concessions were asked.
Of course, says Secretary of State Marco Rubio, concessions were asked. Obviously, concessions were asked. But barring Donald Trump walking out of that meeting on Friday with a letter from Putin saying that he's retreating and he's sorry for the last 3.5 years, you were never going to appease some of these people. It would have been impossible to appease some of these people. And that's what Martha Raddatz was alluding to right there. It's like, well, he didn't have any concessions. Yeah, I know. But at least the door is slightly open. The door is open. We'll see what happens today at the White House. Zelensky's meeting with Trump at 12 o'clock Central Time. So we'll see how that thing plays out. But, man, at least we're talking about this, right? We're talking about this. That's a massive positive when you look at where that part of the world has been the last 3.5 years. And for a lot of people who have insisted Trump doesn't care about Ukraine, doesn't give a rip, isolationist, let Russia do its thing, let Putin run wild. That's not what I saw from this guy on Friday. Yeah, he tried to chum up Putin a little bit, mush him up a little bit. That's what he does. You knew that was going to happen, right? We all knew that that's part of how this conversation was going to play out on Friday. But when you fly a B-2 bomber over a guy's head when he's meeting you on the tarmac in your country, I think you've got the upper hand. 913-408-7957. We're rolling on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Libby and Waldo, go ahead. You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Oh, Pete, I agree with you on so many levels. And I also was telling John, I'm going to speak out here. I am not a communist, by the way. I am a Republican.
I'm not a communist.
I want to tell you.
Thank you for that preface.
Okay, that's no problem. I want to tell you, though, I was impressed with what Putin did after that meeting. And here's what it was. In any type of mediation, and I had to study mediation as part of my master's in counseling, so this was a real big point with me. The thing he did that brought a lot of things together is that he referenced the fact that we are neighbors and that we have burial plots for Russian pilots and U.S. pilots in his country, with our flag flying in his country and the Russian flag flying in his country, as well as in our country. We have the Russian flag and the United States flag over the same people that fought in World War II. And I think that when people realize you've got to find a way to have a conflict resolution, I think by the fact that he said, hello, neighbor, when he met President Trump on the red carpet or whatever, I think that we're neighbors, and we're not always going to like our neighbors. And I also think, Pete, I wish that we could just stop the name calling. I don't know. I just wish we could stop it. I mean, I don't think it helps. It's just aggressive and it's ugly. Yeah, I know what he's done. Trust me, I know what he's done. I've been following it for years.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Libby. I think what Putin did there, he just kind of was also trying to mush up Trump a little bit.
You're right.
I mean, he's.
You're right.
I watched that whole press conference, and Putin spoke more than Trump. And frankly, I thought Putin came off like an out-of-touch, complete and utter scumbag. That's
really?
How I think.
Okay.
I don't care that he's our neighbor. I know that, yes, we have troops buried next to each other. This guy has single-handedly, due to a weird fantasy he has for Eastern Ukraine, led to the death of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, including 1 million of his own people, according to reports.
Right. And I don't disagree. I really don't, Pete. I really don't. I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to disagree. I totally get it. I'm just saying that I don't know. Just saying hi, neighbor. I don't know. There was just something about that, and I thought, okay. Well, I don't know.
I appreciate you, Libby. Thank you very much for checking in. I just think
Bye-bye.
Putin's doing everything in his power to delay or avoid economic sanctions. I mean, if they squeeze him, if he can't utilize banks around the world, the banks could squeeze him. Obviously, if we start tariffing countries that are doing business with Russia, specifically with their oil, That's the next step here. So he may be trying to delay that. He's obviously trying to get in Trump's good graces. I just hope Trump's not buying it. And I don't think he is. I don't. On the text line, Pete, is Zelensky going to wear a suit today? Mark, have you seen any betting odds on Zelensky wearing a suit? He's got to have a suit on today. Guarantee you he's got a suit on.
I haven't seen any odds, but I would say over-under suits over .5.
Yeah. He's going to wear a suit, and I would put the wearing a suit at like a minus 350. That means $3.50 to win $1. He's showing up in a suit. I promise you.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to have a suit on today. Coming up, big tragedy in Kansas City over the weekend. And it ties to what has been the national news story of the last week and a half. We'll tell you what happened coming up next on KCMO.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
Another tragedy, second weekend out of the last 3 weekends that we are talking about burying a teenager in Kansas City. So this was Saturday into Sunday morning. According to KCPD, at about 12:15 in the morning, officers were called to the area of 97th and Woodland, just south of Bannister Road, on reports of a gunfire. When officers arrived, they were flagged down by a bystander who said several people involved in a fight that led to a shooting at a nearby parking lot. Officers were later informed that a 14-year-old boy, later identified as Tiandre Gibson, and a girl under the age of 16 had been taken to the hospital for gunshot wounds. The boy later died from his injuries, while the girl is reported to have non-life-threatening injuries. Fox 4 reporting, at the time, police said they did not have any preliminary information about the events that led up to the shooting, nor is there a suspect in custody. And as KC Mothers in Charge founder Rosalind Temple told Fox 4 over the weekend, kids are kids and should be able to be kids. But that is not the case in Kansas City, where kids are dying. She's right. Now, my kids are not that old, obviously. They're 6, 4, and 18 months. But the notion of having to bury a 14-year-old child who was out at 12:15 in the morning on a technically Sunday morning is unfathomable. And this is now the second teenager who has been killed in the last 3 weeks in this town. We have 9 homicide victims in Kansas City who are under the age of 17 this year. The last couple of years, even though we've seen a downward trend in our homicide count, the last couple of years, we have seen increasing numbers of teenagers getting killed. You go back to 2014, we had 5 people under the age of 17 who were killed. This year, we have 9 so far, and the year obviously still has 4.5 months left. Last year, we had 18, and in 2023, we had 19. So think about that. You go back to 2014, I'm looking at the KCPD numbers. Now, the homicides were also much lower. They were about half of where they are right now. That was when we actually were like pretending to be tough on crime in Kansas City. You had 5 homicide victims under the age of 17. Since the start of 2023, we've had 26. Excuse me. Yeah. No. Way more than that. My math's off. It's early on a Monday. 18 plus 19 is 37. Tack another 9 on there, and you're at 46. 46 in the last 2 years and 8 months. Nearly 50 kids in this town have been killed. I have zero interest in hearing from our city leaders who are upset that Washington, D.C. has had its police force federalized. And oh my goodness, what if that were to ever come to Kansas City? You guys should be begging for help in this town. People in Kansas City right now should be waving their arms to Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. and saying, hey, if you could send some guards out here, we'll take them. I mean, we're short-staffed about 300-400 cops right now. Any help you can give us, we'll gladly take. Sign us up. Instead, it's, well, orange man bad. Because that's what the politics of the day demand out of them. And in the meantime, we now, for the second time in 3 weeks, are talking about a teenager who has to be buried in this town. And you think about something I saw over the weekend. Janine Pirro, she used to be on Fox News. You remember her? I mean, she was kind of I thought she was always kind of a clown and caricature of like a conservative commentator. She was just over the top in everything. And I was never really I didn't dislike her, but I was always like, eye rolling at her because she always seemed like she was trying too hard and she was just putting on a show. Well, I'll give her credit. She has really done a great job so far in explaining and understanding what needs to happen in Washington, D.C., where she is now the U.S. attorney. And over the weekend, she was on Fox, and she was talking about the crime issues, and specifically the crime as it relates to young kids in Washington, D.C., which is a trend that you have seen all over the country, including here in Kansas City. And here's what she said.
President Trump understands that in D.C., it is the minority community that is suffering. Just the other day, I said, give me a picture of all of the teens, everyone 19 and under, who were killed by gunfire. Okay? And in 2024, there were 29 of them, all teens killed by gunfire. 2025, so far, there are 19, all teens killed by gunfire. Every one of them African American, every one of them minority community. And I'm going to stun you. 70% of these homicides of 45 young minority kids in the last year and 7 months have not been solved. The ones who shot and killed them and took their lives from them are still walking the streets. We haven't arrested them. We haven't taken the guns from them. And that's what the president understands. And that's my mission.
That's exactly right from Janine Pirro. It's the same thing here in Kansas City. I mean, you look at Kansas City's population. It's about a 28% black population in Kansas City, give or take. 71% of the homicide victims this year are black. The vast majority of the children and their children who have been killed on the streets of this town. Same thing. We have a massive problem, and there's a lot of things that need to happen to turn this around. Obviously, you need good prosecution. You need more law enforcement. You got to beef up the staff. That's not going to happen overnight. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But my goodness, the fact that the national conversation from some city leaders, not just in Kansas City, but around the country, has been like, I don't know if Trump's doing the right thing. They should be begging on their hands and knees for the kind of help in their cities, including our town, that Washington, D.C. is getting right now. Because if not, you're just going to see more and more of the same. And that is kids in this community having to be buried. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, you won't believe who actually had something nice to say about the president after this historic meeting late last week. We'll tell you who coming up next.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
No, hell has not frozen over, at least not that I'm aware of. But Hillary Clinton, ahead of this big meeting last week between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and then, of course, we've got a big meeting today at the White House with Zelensky getting set to visit, along with several European leaders. Hillary Clinton saying something nice about Donald Trump.
Talk about a bombshell.
What the heck is going on here? What is that all about? I know. I had to make sure this was not AI generated when I saw this over the weekend, but she said something nice. She did. I can't believe it. Here was Hillary Clinton talking late last week going into the meeting about President Trump, what he's done thus far in his handling of the Russia-Ukraine war, and, of course, what could be coming out of these historic few days. We don't have any concessions yet. There's no ceasefire. There's no anything, to be very clear. Nothing whatsoever has happened yet. But we're further along than we've been since the start of the war in the winter of 2022. So if nothing else, if you just want to be an optimist, things are at least trending in a positive direction, right? You got to admit that. And even Hillary Clinton saying last week to Jessica Tarlov that she has been encouraged by this so far.
First of all, the NATO commitment by individual member states to increase their defense spending is very welcome. It's something that prior administrations have certainly sought, and I think it's great that we are seeing these commitments that now have to be followed through on. The willingness of European countries to support Ukraine, and by doing so, buy American weapons in order to provide them to the Ukrainians. I think all of that is a very good signal that there is beginning to be a better understanding, both by the president and the people around him, as well as by the leaders of our European allies, that there can be common ground amongst us. And the kind of dismissiveness that we saw in the first Trump administration has been replaced by a much more obvious working relationship to the good of European security, transatlantic security, and hopefully Ukrainian security. So I'm actually encouraged.
Come again?
She's a real beauty.
What? Hillary, what? Now, there's some belief that Hillary's just buttering up Trump so that way he doesn't, try to put her in jail. I don't know.
Coincidence?
I don't know. I mean, I get it. People are like, wait, Hillary's praising Trump. Something's going on here. That doesn't make any sense. Hillary does that when she's trying to butter you up or she's about to kill you, right? One or the other. I'm just saying. I'm just going to throw it out there. But it's like, that's not how this works. No, I think she's being genuine here. I do. I think Hillary Clinton is actually, dare I say, reading the room a little bit. And I think also, someone will write this book at some point, Hillary knows what a disaster Joe Biden was deep down. She won't say it publicly. Nobody will. They got to stick on the same team. But she knows what an absolute, utter, bumbling fool that guy was when he ran this country. She knows it. I actually genuinely believe that. So she says that she's encouraged by President Trump. And then Trump gets asked about it over the weekend after he wrapped up his meeting with Putin. He's coming back. He talks to Brett Baier of Fox News about this. They played another clip of Hillary Clinton praising President Trump, and here's what it sounded like.
In fact, did you see that Hillary Clinton yesterday said that if you got this deal done and not capitulate to Putin, that she would nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize?
If President Trump were the architect of that, I'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, that was very nice. I may have to start liking her again.
I may have to start liking her again. Let's not go too far there, my man. But what an answer he's caught off guard by the question, and he's like, well, I may have to start liking her again. I mean, don't forget, she was at his wedding, which won the third one to Melania. He was at her wedding. Hillary was there with Bill, John.
Maybe after disclosing her medical records, Hill wants a shot at Putin. Her best way is to buddy up to Trump. Yeah. You see the three of them standing there in a picture. I would picture her as reaching around behind him and slapping Putin in the back of the head.
Oh, gosh, I would. Oh, that would be gold, man. Absolute gold. But when you see this and you hear Hillary, it does make you wonder why she's coming to this conclusion right now. Like, what is she going to get out of it? Well, I think that there's something that she realizes, and that is that the war in general was avoidable with more American strength, and we didn't get that. You look at the Afghanistan withdrawal, of course, in 2021. That then led to Putin ramping things up in the 2022. So I don't think this is just like a public gesture of goodwill towards Trump. I don't. I think that even Hillary Clinton is having a moment of self-awareness. And maybe some of you think I'm going too far on that, but that's where I'm at right now. 913-408-7957. Text line, you can gladly roast me if you'd like. Let's go to the phones. Mike on KCMO. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'm just hearing from people that I know that the Democrats are trying to pull themselves closer to the center. The radicals, the commie mayor, and all those other people that are pulling the country so far left, or the party so far left. I think that what they're trying to do, they realize that's a dead end course. And to go one step further, what's his face up in Trudeau up in Canada pulled Canada so far left that now you have Saskatchewan and Alberta seriously trying to go for independence, and that's another story you may want to look in some time. But I think this is all a matter of getting the party back on course somewhere, back to where the American people are, and not the people who want to mutilate children and legalize pedophilia and all the other things that the radicals are trying to do.
Well, maybe.
That's what I'm hearing from some Democrats.
You see, all right. I mean, listen, there's a lot of things. If people want to disagree with Trump on stuff, he'll give you something every day, right? But this one, I don't understand. So if your suggestion is that Hillary Clinton is basically extending an olive branch when even she thinks Trump is playing his cards right, to actually say that out loud, because that's been so difficult, nearly impossible for most of her party over the last 10 years, then I could see what you're saying there. I could. If it's a way to warm up her political base to the idea that everything Trump does isn't evil and wrong, then okay, it might be that simple. You might be right. And she said it on Jessica Tarlov's podcast, and Jessica Tarlov is like one of the few progressives that appears on Fox News. She's on that show, The Five, every day. So it's, to your point, Mike, maybe not a coincidence that she chooses to say this on the podcast of somebody who is, yes, like-minded to her, but also does have an audience on Fox News. I can get with that, Mike. I'm down with that. On the text line, Pete, last week you're raving about Taylor Swift. Now Hillary Clinton. Pete, if you're in trouble, blink twice. Blink twice. No. Listen, first off, how I handled Taylor Swift is far different to how I just handled Hillary Clinton the last few minutes, okay? I mean, please. Yes, I was very high on Taylor Swift's performance on the New Heights podcast. Please do not compare that commentary to what I'm saying right now about Hillary Clinton. I'm just saying she might potentially be somewhat seeing a sliver of light. Please don't get carried away with the Hillary Clinton commentary. It's President Trump who just said, I might have to start liking her again. Now, that was very much tongue-in-cheek, but still, I do not want to allow my Taylor Swift commentary from New Heights last week to in any way be compared to this commentary on Hillary Clinton. That's a bridge too far. Now, I can't do it. Please. But I appreciate the P1 listening, as we call it in the industry. A diehard listener right there on the text line. 913-408-7957. All right, we'll get to the 6 at 6. Top 6 stories on a Monday morning in the 6 a.m. hour next on KCMO Talk Radio.
Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
6:49 on a Monday. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. It is that time of the morning.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, we do have a meeting today at the White House.
Number one.
And that is our top story today. You've got Vladimir Zelensky, the president, of course, of Ukraine, coming to the White House with multiple European leaders. That will be happening at about 12 o'clock Central Time, along with the leaders of France, Germany, Italy, Britain, Finland, and the EU and NATO, joining Zelensky today at the White House. Zelensky on Sunday traveled to Brussels to meet with the European Commission president and held a video call with other leaders to prepare for the meeting today with the president of the United States. So Zelensky has been thanking Trump in recent conversations for taking it this far, for getting it this far, to hopefully finding some kind of ceasefire and then, yes, a peace agreement with Russia. But we'll see how it plays out, because last time Zelensky was in the White House, well, we got some fireworks. My one piece of advice, wear a suit, bro. That's all I got.
Number two.
Next up in the 6 at 6, here in Kansas City, another teenager shot and killed over the weekend. This was 12:15 on Sunday morning. Officers called to 97th and Woodland, and what they found was a 14-year-old boy who was suffering from gunshot wounds, later identified as Teandre Gibson, and a girl under the age of 16 who was also taken to the hospital for gunshot wounds. Gibson died from his injuries, while the girl is reported to have non-life-threatening injuries. At this time, the police say they do not have any preliminary information about the events that led up to the shooting, nor is there a suspect in custody. But this is now the second time in the last 3 weekends we've been here on the Monday morning talking about the death of a teenager, and not an 18 or 19-year-old. 2 weeks ago, it was a 16-year-old girl. Now it's a 14-year-old boy.
Number three.
In our 6 at 6, as we keep it rolling on a much lighter note, how about the Royals? We said they needed a big weekend against the White Sox, and they got it. Comeback fashion, picking up the sweep yesterday over the Southsiders. They win 6-2 for a second straight day, so they took all 3 games. They've won 5 of their past 6. They're 2 games over 500. The problem is the teams they're chasing right now also happen to be winning. They're 9 games back of Detroit in the division. And in the wild card, they're 4 games back of the Yankees, who have also won 3 games in a row. So that's a bit problematic when you look at the wild card race. But you know what? You start a series today with the Texas Rangers as well. And let's see. Let's see.
Win 3 out of 4, and they're in a good shape, I think.
Is that what you're thinking, Mark?
Yep.
You got to win 3 or 4 this week, though, right?
Got to win the series.
Are the Rangers any good?
Yeah, they're, I think, just a game behind the Royals in the race.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is a huge series then for the wild card. Oh, man. I got to check in. You know, Dayton Moore now works for the Rangers, but he's here in Kansas City. And I got to see where he's at these days. Maybe the governor run? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Jack Caglione might be coming back this week. He's been on IL. So that'd be a nice boost for the Royals, hopefully.
That would be a nice little boost. There you go. I like it. I like it a lot. Very good. All right. Great weekend for the Royals. Let's keep it rolling here.
Number 4.
In our 6 at 6, it looks like the heat wave is finally coming to an end. This was the hottest weekend this summer in Kansas City. I saw my friend Luke Doris at KCTV5 reporting that. Got out a little bit on Saturday. Took the girls to the pool, but Sunday was just, I was like, I can't do it. I'm done. Can't do it, John.
Delayed the current game.
Yeah,
that was a 3
know.
o'clock kickoff, and they had to wait till like 6 till the field temperature got down to a playable.
Well, how about the current? I saw they were getting roasted over the weekend. No pun intended.
Speak,
yeah. It's like, hey, you guys set a game for 3 p.m. on a Saturday in August in Kansas City.
I wonder.
What did you expect? That was a bad look. They were getting killed on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So it was it was all-time heat this weekend, but it looks like things are going to be cooling down. Not today, necessarily. We're going to have highs in the low 90s, but then we may just hit 90 tomorrow. And after that, 87 on Wednesday, 85 Thursday, Friday. Sunday, a high of 79. Oh, it sounds so good. So the heat wave will be coming to an end here in Kansas City. And next week, highs are in the 70s. That's got college football weather written all over it. Mark's ready. He's going to be at the KU Fresno State game this weekend. He can't wait.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun out there.
Yes, you're going to see the new stadium.
The new booth.
There you go. I love that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Good work.
Number 5.
Next up in the 6 at 6 here on KCMO Talk Radio. So tomorrow on the 19th at Hayward's Barbecue, Kansas gubernatorial candidate Ty Masterson is going to be there 11:30 to 1:30. And what they're doing is they're hosting an event to support small businesses like Hayward's and strengthen law enforcement to fight violent crime and build a safer, thriving Kansas. Hayward's is, I think, one of the most underrated barbecue joints in the entire area. I love Hayward's.
That's one of my favorites, has been for years.
Is that right?
Yeah,
awesome.
like Hayward's.
I don't know if we've ever talked about that, John, but I'm a huge fan.
No, I guess we haven't.
And they will be doing this tomorrow. So the rally is 11:30 to 1:30. Ty Masterson will be here at 8:30 this morning on KCMO. We'll talk about this, the crime issues, and then, of course, I got to ask him about the Royals and the Chiefs, right? We haven't talked in a few weeks. So Ty Masterson, Senate President and Kansas gubernatorial candidate, will be here at 8:35 this morning on KCMO.
Number 6.
And last but not least, because I know you're all dying for an update on the Overland Park Farmers Market that's being built out. Kansas City Star writing about how construction is taking shape for the new farmers market in downtown Overland Park. And I'm just going to use the last part of the 6 at 6 here to remind you that this is a $34 million project to build a farmers market in downtown Overland Park. If you think they don't have enough of your taxpayer money, trust me, they do. When you're building $34 million farmers markets, they got plenty of your money. And they're trying to figure out what to do with it. There's your 6 at 6 on KCMO Talk Radio. What are the possible outcomes for today's high-stakes meeting at the White House? We'll dive into it coming up next. What's the best case scenario today when Volodymyr Zelensky goes to the White House with European leaders? The best case scenario is that Zelensky does what he says he would not ever do, and that is acquiesce some land in eastern Ukraine to Russia. But then get security guarantees on his end. Putin won't be happy about that because Putin's ultimate goal has always been Kiev, right? And he tried. But right now, if you're Ukraine, you're basically just in defensive mode. And if this war goes on another 5-10 years, eventually you're going to lose it. Just on pure population, you're going to lose this war, especially when you're going up against a guy in Putin who doesn't care about the well-being of his own troops. He does not care about the death. We know that. That information's out there. The Russian army has about 3.6 million troops, despite losing almost 1 million in Ukraine. Putin couldn't care less about casualties. Ukraine's lost about 800,000 soldiers. So there's no winning this war. There's no fighting back Russia here. Despite the fact that John Bolton and a lot of these war hawks and warmongers are like, if we just keep arming Ukraine, they're going to win the war. No, they're not. Do the math. It's not going to happen. And how much loss of life are we talking about for the 0.1% chance that may come through? But you heard some of this over the weekend. I saw John Bolton was talking about this over the weekend on News Nation. Is this guy serious? I mean, I know that he gets excited by war. Trust me, he does.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a
He's
very,
got Bill
very
O'Reilly
long time.
worked up.
Yeah, he does. I mean, you get John Bolton and war in the same room, and boy, that's an all-time 10 pitcher right there. So it's just not the right thing. It's not smart for anybody. And it's something that Zelensky has to be talked out of today. There's this belief that the European leaders are coming today to basically make sure Trump doesn't bully Zelensky into a bad deal with Putin. I think it's the opposite. What I foresee potentially happening here is the European leaders, who have not done nearly as much as we have done here in the United States, right? Billions and billions of dollars we've spent on this war to help Ukraine and allow Ukraine to protect itself. And it's largely been a noble cause, but there has to be an off-ramp to it. We can't keep footing the bill forever here. That being said, I actually think the European leaders are quietly and privately going to say to Zelensky, you got to get a deal here, bud. We got your back. We can give you some type of potential security guarantees. We can put some troops in Kiev. We can help you out for the time being, but you have got to give up some of this land in eastern Ukraine. You have to do it. This thing has to end for all of our sakes. You're talking about the biggest war on Europe since World War II. This is it right here. It's got to end. It's been a long 3.5 years. You lost, 800,000 troops, and the numbers are not on your side. Let's get an off-ramp here. And that's what I hope actually ends up coming out of this, that Trump and the European leaders basically say to Zelensky, who I understand is a proud man leading this country and a wartime president. But sometimes when you're in that spot, you're not seeing the forest through the trees, right? You're just seeing everything right in front of you without seeing some of the big picture. And that's sometimes understandable. I can't imagine what it's like being in his shoes right now. But that's where you need some sober analysis from the outside, whether it's President Trump or any of these European leaders to say, dude, you can't win this thing. I know you're proud. I know it's your country. But if you give Putin some of this land that for some reason he's got a love affair with, we can help protect what you've got left and allow this rebuild process to begin. But Zelensky's going to have to be convinced of that, because if you heard him over the weekend, he was having none of it.
Russia is still unsuccessful in Donetsk region. Putin has been unable to take it for 12 years. And the constitution of Ukraine makes it impossible impossible to give up territory or trade land. Since the territorial issue is so important, it should be discussed only by the leaders of Ukraine and Russia at the trilateral Ukraine, United States, Russia. So far, Russia gives no sign that trilateral will happen, and if Russia refuses, then new sanctions must follow.
All right, so that was Zelensky over the weekend. But he knows he can't do this without our help and without Europe's help. More so our help, but you get the point. He needs the good guys to have his back here. And the question is, and we'll find out today, are the good guys done? I think Trump is done. Trump wants this thing over. Trump said it last week when he was going to Alaska. He's like, I'd rather be focused on stuff happening here in the U.S., but, I got to do what I got to do. So Trump's like, I'm putting time and energy into this, and Trump's one of these guys, he just wants to get things done and move on to the next thing, right? He wants to check off his list. That's just what he is. He's a doer. Whether he's always right or not is a separate conversation, but he just does things and gets them done. And mentally, he is over this entire war. He wants it done. He wants it in the past. He wants to refocus on different things, and he's right to feel that way. So I think he's going to be hyper-focused on making sure Zelensky has to acquiesce on something. He's got no choice. I mean, that's how you get a deal done. Both sides have to give a little something here. Let's go to Bill in Osborne. Go ahead, Bill. You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. To me, I think that there's going to have to be pain on both sides in the compromise, and Zelensky's going to have to give up territory. He could give up the Kharkiv province over everything east of the Donetsk. He could give up Luhansk. He could give up Donetsk and Zaporizhia and Kherson, and keep the natural borders of the Dnieper River, and then move all the Russian-speaking people out of Ukraine. The Odessa province is almost, 50% Russian-speaking, and he can't leave those behind, or it'll be continual war forever. It'll be like Sudetenland forever, and that has to be Russia's pain. They've got to take all those people back and then move what Ukrainians are in the eastern part back into Ukraine. Their cultures don't mix, and anyway, I disagree with Putin when he says that Ukrainians are Russians, because they're not. So anyway,
and we'll have to see too. Thank you, Bill. I mean, I know Putin puts on a good show there on Friday, but the guy's a madman. The guy's a killer. The guy is a psychopath. I'm not sure what exactly he's going to be willing to agree to, or if he's just buying some time with this entire Trump meeting and now the meeting today at the White House, if he's just trying to buy time when it comes to potential economic sanctions coming his way. Topeka, John, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, good morning, Pete. I think if Zelensky wears a suit, Trump's got a chance. But if he wears that mafia-style jumper that he did last time, I don't think anything's going to happen.
Well, I put the odds at minus 350 Zelensky wears a suit. That means $3.50 to win you $1. So I'd say heavy odds Zelensky shows up looking presentable today.
Well, you'd hope so, because that might get
Well, if he doesn't show up in a suit, then he's an absolute moron. I don't know what else to say. I mean, the guy's got to show up in a suit today based on how that last thing went at the White House. There is no doubt in my mind that Zelensky will show up in a suit. I feel like it's almost a guarantee. It's a lock, as Mark might call it, on a Friday ahead of football season.
Well, that's exactly what Trump's going to think. It's like, this guy's a moron. I kicked him out of the White House last time for looking like this. What do you think I'm going to do this time? Yeah. Now I'm going to make fun of him in front of his face again, even worse. And Bill kind of stole some of my thunder on the Donetsk. That's a lot of that is Russian-speaking, and that's who Putin was trying to go in, because there was a bunch of ethnic cleansing going on in there, and Putin was trying to put a stop to it. And so there's going to have to be some good give and take, and the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine need to leave, or else there's never really going to be a set peace in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yep, thank you. I appreciate that. Well done there, John. 913-408-7957, our text line and our studio line, as this historic meeting is set to take place today at noon Central Time. Trump, Zelensky, and other European leaders as well, all meeting today at the White House. Coming up, did you see we got our next covfefe? We have 2.0 of Covfefe. We'll tell you what happened coming up on 95.7 FM.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
8:31 in the morning yesterday, Trump dropped what may be the new covfefe. Remember that from 2017? He randomly tweeted out COVFEFE, and everyone was like, what is covfefe? And it became a whole thing. It was like a social media sensation. Well, yesterday, we got the Trump 2.0 of covfefe. It was one word, Bella. B-E-L-A. So this is not just so, and the reason I spelled it out like that is because it was not B-E-L-L-A, which in Italian would, of course, mean beautiful. It was just B-E-L-A, John, and that was it.
Of course, downloads for Bella Fleck and the Fleck Tones will increase today on all platforms.
Yeah.
And people will be looking at Bella Lugosi now, too. Hey. Of course, and that's like Trump, too, with his references and icons. You know, Bella Lugosi.
So this, and I love how this goes. That's funny. That's well done. But you've got people on the left saying, like, Gavin Newsom is taking credit. He's like, we've broken Trump. We broke him. Oh, my gosh, we got him. He's a broken man. And then there are those on the right who think it's like, 56D chess or something going on here. And that Bella is some acronym that means something, and he's trying to speak to Q and all this wacko stuff, right? So there's a lot of that going on. When probably what happened is Trump was sitting on the can, and he accidentally hit send on a post and didn't realize he was even open in his Truth Social and typed Bella and then accidentally hit the send button. I don't know. That's probably far more likely than what any conspiracy theorist on either side is believing here, John.
My text does something weird, and I got an Android phone, but it'll... Rather than, if I reply to someone, rather than closing up the conversation, it'll drop down another dialogue box. And if I'm not looking and just kind of thumb my phone closed, it'll put like PPPQ2 and then tell me I've got a draft saved. I'm like, what? Well, so I don't know.
I don't know about that, John. You're also the guy who, your computer goes 17 different directions there in the newsroom. And apparently it only happens to you in the whole building.
I'm the guy that can make it do that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. Engineers, I've heard that more times in my life. I've never seen that.
John's the guy where they walk in and they say, how did you do this? What did you do? What happened here? So this is also something that picked up steam yesterday after Trump sent out Bella, B-E-L-A. So some are interpreting it as a reference to the book of Genesis. Yes. President Trump tweeting out a single word in reference to the book of Genesis. Mr. 2 Corinthians, as you may recall back in the day, is now referencing the book of Genesis because some are talking about the Edomite king in Genesis that Trump may have been referring to, whose name was Bella. I'm pretty confident that's not it. Call me crazy, but I'm pretty confident that this was not a reference to the Edomite king in the book of Genesis. I might be way out of line here. I might be assuming something I should not assume, but I am going to take that one all the way to the bank. Lock, stock, and barrel. What about you there, Mark? What do you got for me? You got anything good on this Bella theory?
I just thought it was his new name for a new cat.
Oh,
Bella.
Come on, Trump's not a cat guy. I know he won't have the White House dog, but he's not a cat guy.
I could see him have a nice, calm cat there sitting there next to him.
Actually, the more I think about it, I could see a cat sitting on the armrest in the Oval Office. That actually would look pretty badass.
Yeah.
See, there's a lot of people that couldn't pull off the cat on the armrest, but I think Trump could. Now that I think about it, Mark, you might be onto something there. Well, if we hear some meows around the White House, suddenly Mark may be a man ahead of his time. Oh, my gosh.
Saw another acronym here. Somebody said it really stands for Be Everything Liberals a Bore. So there's that.
Oh, that's great. That's an acronym I could actually latch onto with those little deals.
That might stick.
That one might stick. That's great. All right. In the meantime, Bella becomes covfefe of Trump 2.0. And we'll just have to wait. Maybe someone will ask if there's a press conference today after he's beaten Zelensky over the head or over something. Maybe that'll come up today. We'll have to wait and see. Now, coming up, did you see, speaking of the media, they're doing their deep dives into Bella. But did you see how they actually covered the events from over the weekend in Alaska? we have the low of the all-time low for you. Don't miss it right after the news.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Do you see the media? My gosh, talk about extremes. They can't help themselves. So Friday, of course, Trump has this historic meeting with Vladimir Putin, right? They meet in Alaska. They got the whole red carpet thing rolled out. And Trump is just trying to end this and get the killings to stop. No matter what you think of this guy, whether you can't stand him or you love him, it's a noble gesture. We've come further, not that we're far along, but we've come further than we have at any point in the last 3.5 years to having some type of conclusion to the worst war in Europe since World War II, with upwards of 2 million people killed in this process. So how is our American media covering this? Well, you know and I know that barring Donald Trump coming out with a letter from Putin saying that I will stop the killing, I will end this war, and I will give Ukraine all of its land back. Barring something like that on Friday, they were going to call this thing a failure. They were just going to do it. But I didn't realize how much some of these people were going to embarrass themselves. And I've got a few examples of it right here. Let's start with MSNBC because, of course, right?
Fake news.
And here is MSNBC going off on the meeting. I'll give you the names of these anchors. This is Alicia Menendez talking to Nicole Wallace. Here we go.
Completely transparent with our viewers. We were prepared for the possibility of a minimalist outcome. We were also prepared for the possibility of a maximalist outcome. We have maps of Russia and Ukraine such that if we were going to be talking tonight, we'd have Ali Velshi at the big board walking us through which territories were where and why they were of critical need and want to both. We had full screens about what membership to NATO means to Ukraine. There was so much that could have been discussed tonight, including Donald Trump saying if he is not willing, he being Putin, willing to agree to a ceasefire, then there are going to be consequences. We had lists of tariffs and secondary tariffs pulled up, the possibility of sanctions. It is not clear that any of that was discussed. It is possible we were more prepared for this meeting than he was.
Oh, you probably take that to the bank.
Yep. The wine moms were more prepared for the meeting than Trump and Marco Rubio and everybody else involved with U.S. foreign policy. You got it. They got them there, John.
Oh, man, we don't know what we're talking about, but I'll bet we know more about that than anybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, MSNBC. People who have been basically on the wrong side of everything the last 10 years definitely got it down now, though. They definitely were more prepared than this guy. I mean, it did, even if you don't think it went well, how do you come to that conclusion? Of all the possible conclusions to come to, that's the conclusion? Okay, just be like, hey, we should have gotten more out of this meeting. We were more prepared than he was. Based on what? We don't really know what was discussed, and there's a reason for that, right? Because it's an ongoing negotiation. But the door is at least open. It wasn't open until the last few days, so it's open. Now, let's go to CBS. This was a gem. Did you see the video that went viral? Trump meets Putin on the tarmac in Alaska, right? And as they're walking back after they shake hands, a B-2 bomber flies over the top of Trump and Putin. It was, a major show of American strength that was so well coordinated and so well crafted. For Trump to fly a B-2 bomber over the head of Putin, and, a sign of American strength. You're on our soil. Don't forget what we did with these suckers, a few months ago there in Iran. And don't forget what happened to those people either. That was not a coincidence. Unless he was trying to give Putin the experience at Arrowhead Stadium. That could have been the other reason he was going that route. But it was, fantastic optics. No matter what you think. I retweeted a guy over the weekend who shared that video. And he was, this is actually pretty good. He writes here, I despise Donald Trump. But this flyover is one of the most badass things I've ever seen from a military perspective. The strategic messaging of a nuclear bomber flying over the head of Putin is powerful and deafening. That's exactly right. But what does CBS do with this on Face the Nation? Fiona Hill had this to say about the B-2 bomber flyover.
You were an advisor during that infamous Helsinki summit in 2018. You've spoken about that in the past. I wonder what you think about how this Alaska summit compared.
Well, obviously quite different in many respects. Part of it was the fact that they decided to skip the one-on-one meeting and the lunch. I mean, these are usually part of the sort of set of summits like this. And the press conference obviously was more of an announcement or a set of announcements, presentations by both leaders, much more by President Putin and more of a commentary by President Trump. So there wasn't that free-for-all of press questions, which I'm sure was a bit disconcerting for you and others who were present there at Alaska. But the optics weren't exactly great, as Congressman Crow has laid out. For the United States and for President Trump again. I mean, again, different. But although it was presented as perhaps a show of power by being at a U.S. Air Force base with the flight passing of the B-52s and other fighter jets, it did certainly look much more like a show of appreciation for Vladimir Putin. And so the optics were really much more favorable to Putin than they were to the United States. It really looked like Putin had set the agenda there, the narrative, and in many respects the tone for the whole summit meeting.
You have to be demented.
That's the meeting I was talking about. There were two different meetings, apparently.
Yeah.
That's the one I was talking about.
You have to be on another planet to think that flying a B-2 bomber right over the head of Putin at the exact time that he's walking on American soil for the first time in years, 3.5 years into a war that's cost 2 million lives, with the president of the United States, is somehow a show of strength for Putin, a tribute to Putin, when we use those same planes to take out top leaders in Iran just a few months ago? What? But these are the people they're putting on mainstream television networks to try to assess what happened on Friday. It is so disingenuous. But for these folks, it's also very much, sadly, on brand as well. So I'm watching some of the coverage over the weekend, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me with this. Where are they coming up with this? And then this was kind of a funny sidebar. There appears to be some trouble in paradise between CNN anchors Jake Tapper and Anderson Cooper. So take a listen. Jake Tapper's on a hot mic. He's in Alaska over the weekend. Anderson Cooper's back in the CNN studios. And Jake Tapper, you could hear him on the hot mic saying to Anderson Cooper, "Give me my show back."
Let's go back to Jake in Anchorage. Jake?
I'm fine. Just give me my show back.
Show's back.
Right, here we go. So,
show's back.
Let's go now to Senator Schiff, who we have here. Senator Schiff is joining me, ready to go. Democratic senator from California.
Oh, that was awkward. Whoops. Old Jake caught on the hot mic saying to Anderson Cooper, "Give me my show back, darn it." See, it goes to show you, too, that they just weren't feeling this meeting. They don't know what to do. The people that have been waving Ukrainian flags for 3.5 years are now somehow upset that we actually might be closer to a ceasefire and an end of the war than we were literally a month ago, 2 months ago, certainly a year ago. Make sense of that. The guy was actually saying, we've got to stop the war. We've got to stop the killings. We need to figure out a deal here, an off-ramp for everybody, because if not, it's not going to get better anytime soon. Now, that guy can't do anything right in the eyes of the Ukrainian flag wavers? Make it make sense, please. Coming up, the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend. A lot to get to on that front next on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
It is that time of the week on a Monday morning. What do you say? Let's do it.
It's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly on KCMO Talk Radio. Now on 95.7 FM.
Well, the good coming out of the weekend. Shall we start with Bill Maher, of all people? And the reason I bring up something that Bill Maher said is because it literally dovetailed off of something that Mark Alford and I were talking about on Friday. Missouri Congressman Mark Alford was on the show. He was in studio Friday morning. If you missed that, it is up on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Search Pete Mundo, and you can subscribe there so you never miss our interviews. So Bill Maher, and this is after Mark Alford and I were talking about the same thing, it feels like Republicans are more likely, or just, people who are conservative, independent, they're more likely to go on to shows and discuss with people that they disagree with than vice versa. Because Mark was talking about how he's doing all these town halls coming up. He's expecting hecklers. He's done an event with KCUR, of course, the National Panhandler radio affiliate, where basically he went to this town hall with KCUR, and everyone knew that he was going to vote to defund NPR. And he still showed up. He didn't hide. He went to their event like weeks before he voted to defund them. That's a testament to Mark Alford. And you see a lot more of that, of people who are independent and lean right and are on the right going to discuss issues of the day and topics with people they disagree with. Then you see it the other way around. Right? When do you see people who lean left or are on the left go on shows of hosts and panels they don't agree with, where they don't have strength in numbers? You never see it. And Bill Maher said exactly that on his show over the weekend.
People ask me all the time, why haven't you ever had Hillary or Bill Clinton on? Why didn't you have Kamala on during the last campaign? You think we don't ask? We ask these people every week. They say no. It took 8 years and a petition to get Obama on. And these are people, all people I voted for. Think about that. They're afraid to come on the show of a guy who voted for them. The Republicans, they show up. And when they do, they take their beating like a man.
I mean, of course he had to throw in his Maher spin there at the end. But his general point is obviously accurate. He has way more people on his show, oftentimes, who will be ideologically opposed to him. And some big names as well. Ted Cruz, Ron DeSantis, Steve Bannon. Those people will show up on Bill Maher's show. When's the last time you saw the opposite happen? You rarely, if ever, see it. And why is that? Well, there's just more diversity of thought, frankly, on the political right than the political left. And we see that in all the polling. Gallup had a big poll on that a few months back. There is far more diversity of thought on the political right than on the political left. And as they wrote here at the time, although they pride themselves on open-mindedness, liberal thinking actually coalesces around a very narrow set of opinions, whereas the right diverges widely. That's why you see far more people who lean right willing to discuss and have conversations with those they disagree with, because they're like, well, we're not all just basically of the same ilk. We have different opinions on some of these big issues, and let's kind of talk about it. On the other side, it's like, nope, you're Hitler. You disagree with me. Sorry. And that's not a way to forward the conversation in this country. And good for Bill Maher for calling that out on his show over the weekend. The bad from the weekend. Kansas City Current got absolutely roasted, no pun intended, for delaying their match against the Orlando Pride. It was scheduled to kick off at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and they delayed it due to weather conditions. What were those weather conditions? It was hot in Kansas City in the middle of August. Wow.
Talk about a bombshell.
And they got absolutely destroyed. Here are some of the responses on their social media page. Why would you schedule matches at 3 p.m. in August if you're worried about the heat? Someone else, why not postpone? It's not cooling off. You're leaving the fans in the stands, ? Someone else writes, S show. Also, I'm glad I'm not in the stands waiting for the game to start. That sounds miserable. Someone else says, how much are you charging for a bottle of water so fans can stand there and sweat all day while you postpone or delay the match? Also, it's August in Kansas City. Why not do a night game? Carrie writes here, felt like this was preventable by looking at the weather yesterday. It's not like, wow, I can't believe it was 95 degrees today in the middle of the afternoon in Kansas City. We've been talking about it all week leading up to the weekend. It was going to be the hottest weekend this summer in Kansas City, and it was. And you got a 3 o'clock game, and then you put a post out like a little bit before the game saying, sorry, we're delaying it due to weather conditions. It's not like it's a thunderstorm that's going to blow through. It's hot. It's humid. It's gross. Mark, you're big into this scene. Did you see some of the people getting on the current over the weekend?
Oh, yeah. I had a few friends on Facebook that were actually out at the game and left early, so they didn't even stay for the game.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
One friend had to walk all the way back to their car at River Market. So they couldn't get back to the stadium unless they waited in their car for 3 hours and then walked back. They're not going to do that.
Oh, man.
And those that stayed were rewarded with a 0-0 draw.
Yeah, I just was going to mention that. If you stayed, you got a 0-0 draw. Oh, my gosh. As if it couldn't get any worse. The kicker, you get a 0-0 draw. That's your thanks for hanging around in the heat on Saturday to watch the Current play the Pride. Woo, man, that's brutal. You can't make that stuff up. All right, that was the bad from the weekend. The ugly, a 14-year-old boy was killed and another teenage girl injured in a shooting in Kansas City. This was about 12:15 in the morning on Sunday, 97th and Woodland, just south of Bannister Road. 14-year-old boy was identified as Tiandre Gibson. The girl, who also was under the age of 16, was taken to the hospital for gunshot wounds. The girl is reported to have non-life-threatening injuries. But this, in Kansas City, continues to be a major problem. It is now our 9th homicide victim under the age of 17 this year. We have had 46 homicide victims under the age of 17 since the start of 2023. To put this into perspective, back in 2014, when, yes, the homicide numbers were much lower in this town, we had 5 for the entire year. 2 years ago, we had 19. Last year, we had 18. This year, we have 9. That's in 2.5 years, 46 homicide victims who are children. And the people in this town have the audacity to criticize the guy who's trying to clean up the mess that is Washington, D.C. with the police force. No one in power has any answers on violent crime in this town, and this sadly is the latest example as we sit here for the second weekend in the last 3 and talk about the death of a child due to violent crime. There's your good, bad, and ugly. Jared Halpern, Fox News Radio, on the big meeting today with Trump and Zelensky. He'll preview it next. We are getting set for a high-stakes meeting today. Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is going to be at the White House with President Trump and several other European leaders. It'll be happening at about 12 o'clock Central Time. We'll be monitoring it here on KCMO Talk Radio. Jared Halpern, Fox News Radio, all over the story. Jared, good morning. Thanks for joining us in Kansas City. What are the top things you're watching today ahead of this high-stakes meeting?
If we get any more details on what a path to peace might look like in Ukraine following President Trump's sit down with Vladimir Putin late last week. And, you know, at least the reports coming out of Europe suggest that Vladimir Putin is pushing for a deal that would essentially cede Ukrainian territory to Russia, including territory that has not entirely been invaded or conquered or controlled or occupied by Russia. That seems to be a no-go, certainly for Zelensky. And what you are seeing now is what they are calling a coalition of the willing, with these European partners joining Zelensky here at the White House, a group that will include Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, the UK Prime Minister, the Italian Prime Minister, the German Chancellor, the French President, the Finnish President, the EU Commissioner. So this is high stakes because it seems to be critical to trying to figure out, if you're President Trump, what the contours of a peace plan will look like. I think that there are going to be some questions, too, from Europeans about the tone of President Trump, what he is seeking. If you recall, on the way to Russia, on the way to his meeting with the Russian president in Alaska, President Trump made clear that he wanted a ceasefire to come out of his talks with Putin and would be disappointed if there wasn't, and would impose what he called very severe consequences. A ceasefire did not come about from that meeting in Alaska. And President Trump still says he is holding off on some of those severe consequences. He says because he feels enough progress was made. There are going to be questions about that. Is a lot of European allies are pushing for more economic sanctions on Russia.
So I was going to go there next. The European leaders, depending on who you want to believe, they're there obviously to either, one, prevent Trump from bullying Zelensky into some bad deal. That's one side of the aisle's belief. The other side is saying, no, we invited these European leaders here. They're partners in this. So how do you read into this, Jared?
I think both are true. I think obviously you can't just come to the White House without an invitation, right? If you look at the statement that was put out by Ursula von der Leyen, who is the European Commission president, the sort of representative for the European Union, she indicated that following her meeting with Zelensky, she would accompany him at the request of Zelensky. I think that the Europeans do want to show that they are unified with Zelensky and with Ukraine. At the same time, President Trump, the United States, knows that Europe is going to have to sign off on a lot of these conditions, especially if one of the conditions is a NATO-light or Article 5-like security guarantee for Ukraine. That would involve certainly Europe committing to that, right, that they would help defend Ukraine in the event of a further invasion by Russia. And so do I think that, you know, certainly, again, you can't come to the White House without an invitation, but I do think that there was a strong desire by these European allies to be in the room, to be a part of these conversations.
What about this? Jared Halpern, Fox News Radio, is previewing today's high-stakes meeting at the White House between President Trump, President Zelensky, and European leaders as well. European leaders, the Wall Street Journal reported here that European leaders are hoping that the U.S. would join security guarantees for Ukraine, and that they've been encouraged in recent days by Trump's apparent openness to it. Any possible U.S. role remains unclear. So where is that part of the equation at right now?
That's going to have to be part of the conversation. The U.S. has talked about kind of the trade-off here being not NATO membership for Ukraine, but a security guarantee. What that means is that in the event of an invasion, those partners would help defend Ukraine, potentially in a much more forward-facing way than just supplying them with weapons. Would the United States be a part of that force that certainly would be a security guarantee, I think, in the eyes of Zelensky. And that's going to be a part of these conversations, too, is kind of who would step up and do that and make that commitment.
What about Zelensky? You mentioned there that obviously Russia may want land in any kind of a deal that they have not even been able to penetrate or take control of yet. Zelensky said over the weekend he doesn't want to give any land to Russia, but it seems like there's got to be a give and take here, right? I mean, everyone's going to have to feel like they got screwed and got something out of this deal for any deal to happen. Is that a fair assessment in your eyes?
Well, I think it's important to remember that Zelensky doesn't believe he can make this decision on his own, that there is a provision in the Ukrainian constitution that would require a referendum by Ukrainians to decide whether or not to give up territory. And so he has made that abundantly clear as well. And so I think that there also could be discussions about kind of what is the definition of kind of giving up land. Is it kind of freezing lines where they currently are? And we have kind of these disputed areas. We see that in other parts of the world, right? And so I think the language here is going to matter a lot. I think how it's understood by Russia, by Ukraine, by the international community is going to matter quite a lot.
All right. So if we're sitting here late afternoon, the meeting's all wrapped up, there's probably some kind of a back and forth with the press. How would you view this meeting today as a success, Jared Halpern? What would have to come out of it for you to say and report that this has been a successful meeting and time well spent for all of these world leaders?
Well, I think Zelensky not getting kicked out would be a success for him, given what we saw 6 months ago. Listen, I think what President Trump wants to get out of this meeting is, again, a better understanding of what is acceptable to both sides. And the president is still pushing for a summit that would include both Zelensky and Putin at the table together. Is something like that announced coming out of this? That would be fascinating to see.
That would be. Hey, Jared Halpern, Fox News Radio. Thanks for the input. Great job as always, and we'll be watching today. There you go. Jared Halpern, in and out. On to the next one. He's got news to handle. Joining us on KCMO in Kansas City. Nice job by him. It is going to be a fascinating day. There's no doubt about it. Ty Masterson is running for governor of Kansas. He is the Senate president. He'll be here at 8:35 in just over 20 minutes on KCMO. He's coming to the area for a big event this week. And then also, I got to figure out where exactly we're at with these Royals and Chiefs coming over across the state line. How serious is that? How real is that? As the guy who's in charge of the Senate, who's been heavily involved in those talks, we'll get the latest from him in 20 minutes here on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio. In the meantime, did you see this idea? Oh, my goodness gracious. I just happened to be watching this event last night, and they're talking about something that to me made absolutely no sense, and it could impact what happens here in Kansas City. I'll explain that next on KCMO.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
So Major League Baseball can't just have good ideas. They always have to have some dumb ideas mixed in with their good ideas because that's how the league has been run for the better part of a generation now. That being said, last night, I'm watching Sunday Night Baseball. Did you watch any of this, Mark? You're a Royals fan, obviously, but your Mariners are your second favorite team. They were playing the New York Mets on Sunday Night Baseball, and they were in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where the Little League World Series is held. So they did a cool little series there in Williamsport, and I thought it was very well done.
I saw the end of the game. I didn't see the middle part at the beginning.
What did you think about the layout, the backdrop there with Williamsport?
I like it.
I loved it.
I think it's cool to have games and venues like that occasionally.
Yeah. I know that the racetrack idea bombed out because of the rain in Tennessee at Bristol a couple of weeks back, but the Field of Dreams game is cool. Williamsport's cool. They're trying to drum up some interest during the summer swoon, John.
I'm noticing a theme there. A game where there's already a field is a good idea. Sticking it out the racetrack.
Yeah, you're right about that. Places where you actually play baseball are probably better places to play baseball. Yeah, it is. So they're talking about expansion of Major League Baseball teams. And that was the worst idea I could think of for Major League Baseball. There's not enough pitching in this sport right now to justify expansion for Major League Baseball. Now, you could move some teams around. That would make a lot of sense. The Tampa Bay Rays have not worked since, their inception. That's certainly something that's worth reevaluating. We know what's going on with the formerly Oakland A's. So I'm like, Major League Baseball cannot get out of its own way. Its problem is not having enough teams, if that makes sense. That's not their issue at all. Now, for the Royals, you're thinking to yourself, well, if there was ever a day when the Royals are like, we're going to pick up our bags and move, Rob Manfred, the commissioner, didn't help him last night when he joined Sunday Night Baseball. Because suddenly they're now talking about expansion possibilities, which if you're the Royals and you really wanted to threaten both Kansas and Missouri, you'd be like, well, Nashville's looking pretty good. But if Rob Manfred's talking about expansion teams, then that angle, that threat, which I wouldn't take seriously anyway, but it certainly has absolutely zero juice to it anymore now that expansion appears to be part of the conversation. But then the second part of this that actually would make sense for Major League Baseball is when Rob Manfred said that expansion could lead to the possibility of a realignment of divisions in Major League Baseball.
In my mind, I think if we expand, it provides us with an opportunity to geographically realign. I think we could save a lot of wear and tear on our players in terms of travel. And I think our postseason format would be even more appealing for, entities like ESPN, because you'd be playing up out of the East, out of the West, and that 10 o'clock time slot where we, sometimes get Boston, Anaheim, would be two West Coast teams, and that 10 o'clock slot that's a problem for us sometimes becomes a real opportunity for our West Coast audience. So I think, I think the owners realize that there's demand for Major League Baseball in a lot of great cities, and that we have an opportunity to do something good around that expansion process.
That's actually a good idea. Realign the divisions and do that without expansion. Don't get involved in the expansion game. And here's how I would redo the divisions, because American League, National League, they don't mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
They play interleague all the time. They have the same rules, right? It's not like the old days when you had the National League, you had the American League, you had the DH, you didn't have the DH. Those days are gone. It's not like the American League and National League like the old days don't play each other. They do. It's going on all the time.
Well, I feel like if wear and tear and travel were a genuine concern, then maybe go back to American League only.
Yeah.
And you're not going to as many places.
That's a possibility as well.
I'm curious on your alignment, though.
All right, here's what I would do. I'd put the Royals in a division with the Cardinals, both Chicago teams, Cubs, White Sox, and then Minnesota Twins. That would be my perfect division here in the Central. I thought about Milwaukee instead of Minnesota, but Minnesota's kind of out at an island, so they got to, I think, keep Minnesota in there. But you get the Royals, the Cardinals, the Cubs, the White Sox, and then you get the Twins in there. And then your other Central division could be Tigers, Reds, so Detroit, Cincinnati, Milwaukee Brewers, Cleveland Indians, Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, those teams are more like Big Ten country, if you want to call it that. Eastern Midwest teams, and then you've got the Western Midwest teams, for lack of a better geographical
East
explanation.
Central and West Central.
Yeah, exactly. And you put the Royals and the Cardinals in the same division, how much more fun would that be for baseball fans in this state, in this part of the country? If they're suddenly fighting for division titles, instead of playing a couple series a year, and it's like, oh, this is cool, the I-70 series and the whole deal. If now you're talking about division foes, just redo it. Put the Yankees and Mets and the Red Sox in the same conference.
I like, as a thinking father, you kept the binky for the Cardinals fans by having the Cubs in the division.
No, and then you get the Cubs and the Royals playing a bunch of games. I mean,
the Cardinals won't go anywhere without playing the Cubs.
I know.
Yeah, right.
I know.
So you did well there.
And I think this helps out the Royals suddenly. You get a bunch of games against the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you still got the bottom feeders and the White Sox everybody can beat
Suddenly
up on.
Southwest to Chicago seems
Yeah.
right.
I mean, the flight's an hour, obviously, either way. Minneapolis, not all that far either. So if you're trying to cut down on travel, if now you're saying divisions are basically meaningless, American and National League don't mean anything, then just try to make this as convenient as possible. And that would be, I think, the best way to set this whole thing up for Major League Baseball. But I would not go the expansion route. That, I think, is a terrible idea at this point in time. Baseball's problem is not a lack of teams. It is continuing to be a lack of quality teams at the very top. Now, that does lead to exciting September baseball if your team's in the hunt, especially with the expanded playoffs now with all these wild card teams. But, I mean, there's not enough pitching in this league to go around as is. So I wouldn't go down that road. Now, something else on a good note, in case you missed this. ESPN may be learning a lesson here. Now, they're still a pretty woke operation, but even they realize when they've gone too far. ESPN will no longer proceed with Spike Lee's Colin Kaepernick docuseries, saying it's not coming out. Director Spike Lee's multi-part documentary series for ESPN Films about former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who sparked a national debate when he protested racial justice nearly a decade ago, will not be released, according to ESPN. ESPN saying in a statement that ESPN, Colin Kaepernick, and Spike Lee had collectively decided to no longer proceed with this project as a result of certain creative differences. Oh, that is political speak for this was going to be woke crap. It would have had major backlash, and we decided that we probably shouldn't be doing that right now.
In a related item, Marvel Comics picks up the option for a Colin Kaepernick comic book.
Oh, that's outstanding. They add here, despite not reaching finality, we appreciate all the hard work and collaboration that went into this film. Okay, no, you don't. No, you don't. ESPN realized this would have made them a bigger laughing stock than they already are. Nobody was going to watch that. You tell me who the audience is that is dying for the Colin Kaepernick docuseries. Colin Kaepernick's parents wouldn't watch the Colin Kaepernick docuseries. Literally, they wouldn't watch it. They're fed up with the fact that this guy's blaming everything in his life on racism, despite the fact that, he's adopted and had a very privileged, and still does have a very privileged existence. So this was really appealing to nobody except for a couple of super woke ESPN executives for a period of time. And finally, somebody took charge and said, yeah, this ain't going to happen. Ty Masterson has an event coming up here in Kansas City. We'll also find out about the Chiefs and the Royals from him next.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
I just happen to think it's one of the most underrated barbecue joints in the Kansas City area, and that is Hayward's. And it's happening tomorrow, 11:30 to 1:30. Kansas gubernatorial candidate Ty Masterson is joining us here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming, of course, at KCMOTalkRadio.com. And he is going to be out there tomorrow to highlight some of the violent crime issues that have been, I would say, underreported on the Kansas side of the state line. He's also, of course, the Senate president, so we got a lot to get to with him on news of the day, week, and month here on KCMO. Ty, good morning. Great to have you here. What's going on tomorrow at Hayward's, and why are you coming to town?
Hey, good morning, Pete. Thanks for helping me get the word out. Yeah, we're really just in for an event. It is the highlight from our purposes to highlight where crime has gone. It is so underreported. I've been starting to travel the state. Kansas don't even realize. I mean, last year alone, we had, I think, 35 violent crimes on average per day in Kansas. And then that statistic made us work in New York per capita. So that's what we're trying to highlight that, and just to highlight small business. And by the way, the one point I wanted to make on that is proceeds to this are not going to my campaign at all. This is to support Hayward's and the Sweeney family for what they've been through. So I want to make that clear to everybody. We'd love to have everybody out, but the purpose is to support small business and highlight that we do have a crime problem.
Now, remind people, too, what happened with the family recently.
Well, you had a crazy guy come in and stab the manager, which is the son, Riley Sweeney, right there in Shawnee.
So when you put this together, and you mentioned the per capita Kansas numbers compared to a place like New York, what is the solution to all this in Kansas? How do you get this under control?
Well, I mean, it's the basics. You're backing your police, you're supporting ICE, getting rid of, criminal alien elements. I mean, it's about supporting our law enforcement.
And is that one of those things that you look at right now from Governor Kelly's perspective? Certainly, what could she have done differently that would have led to hopefully a lower crime rate across the state?
Well, I mean, that goes clear back to, she vetoed us sending our guard down to the border. She's supported sanctuary cities in places. She's not been a strong law enforcement. Matter of fact, you're seeing the fraternal order police come our direction.
How much has the border issue from the last few years impacted crime in Kansas?
Oh, it's significant. I'll give you one example, just a drug. I was speaking with our KDI director just a couple weeks ago, and he said, like, for example, fentanyl, it's down like 95% just since Trump took office and shut the border off.
In Kansas in particular, it's down 95%?
That is specifically to Kansas. Now, he said the downside is because of demand, now you're seeing some uptick in old school drugs like heroin and cocaine and meth. But fentanyl is Russian roulette.
Wow. That's crazy. Ty Masterson is running for governor of Kansas. He's also the Senate president, joining us on KCMO. He'll be out at Hayward's tomorrow, 11:30 to 1:30. And once again, those proceeds are supporting the small business there, not going to the campaign in any way. Now, as the Senate president, of course, and we've had a lot of conversations about this, Chiefs, Royals, what's next? Are they coming to the Kansas side of the state line? There's been a lot, as you know, the rumors are just flying all over the place, Ty, but where are you at as someone who's deep in on these conversations on the Royals and the Chiefs and the possibility of them coming to Kansas right now?
So, there are a lot of productive conversations going on. I think they're getting to go past conversations into some detail. I do think they are still in conversations on both sides. And here's what I will tell you. I'm not a gambling man, but I would start to put money on Kansas.
For which team?
For both.
Do you feel like the odds are better for one over the other?
I'd probably put stronger odds on the Royals. But I'd actually put money down on both.
Okay.
I think they're very productive conversations happening.
How about that? Is there a reason that you believe Kansas may be taking the lead in these conversations right now for these two teams?
Oh, I think honestly it's just about business, right? It's entertainment for most everybody else, but for these guys it's about business. So they're going to go where it makes the most sense for them and their franchises. To promote growth and for the franchises. And I would like to know when we talk about this, it gets lost. On Kansas side, there's not a single dollar more in tax being raised, and nobody's liable for the stadium. I want to make sure that's clear because I know that gets mixed up. And so, and even especially doing talk about the Chiefs, 75% of the boxes on the Missouri side are owned by Kansas people, and a majority of season ticket holders are Kansas people.
So right now, when you look at possible locations, and I know that this is going to be decided by the teams, but would there be a local component if we're talking about the Royals at the old Sprint campus? I mean, is there potentially an ask from Overland Park or Johnson County on the taxpayer front?
It could be, because from the state's perspective, we're not engaged in what the locals do there, so there very well could be.
Okay. Do you think that's a deal breaker in some cases for either or both of these teams?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, you're feeling good right now. That's optimistic. And you think about what happened here in recent weeks. Missouri comes to the table and they think that they've matched you guys with a statewide offer. And a lot of people expected that maybe Missouri would jump back to the forefront. But you feel like you guys are getting ahead. Is there something in particular that has led you to that belief from a state level in recent weeks?
I just think in the end, the bottom line for them is the actual bottom line, and that's what they're looking at, and potential for growth.
Okay.
So I think that the deal is override. I know there's a lot of sentimental value, particularly with Arrowhead and the Hunt family, but in the end, they got to look at the next 60 years.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you're right about that. All right. Well, we'll see how that plays out. In the meantime, Senator Masterson, we also have a lot of conversation here in our area after late last week. The U.S. Department of Education announced that they are investigating the KCK School District, Olathe School District, Shawnee Mission School District, and Topeka School District for potential Title IX violations, specifically when it comes to, men and women's sports and in locker rooms and things of that nature. I know that you fought this issue in the state legislature, but when you saw that news last week as a state lawmaker and also potentially the next governor, what did you make and how did you respond when that news came out on Friday?
Oh, I support it. I 100% support it. Been fighting that battle, as a father of 4 daughters. I've been fighting that battle since it became an issue in Kansas, and I do believe, from what I've seen, they are violating not just parental rights, but I think they're violating state and federal law at this point. So I was glad to see that. And sometimes it takes that kind of weight to create the change. You see that how things get. We can create a law, and you see that disconnect with our executive branch. That's why we got to take our executive and judicial branches back, because it's how the laws get implemented. And I think in these cases, they're being ignored. And so I'd like to see that investigation come through and let us know for sure. Because until those consequences are paid, you may not see behavioral change.
Is there anything at a state level that you can do, whether it's on the assisting front or anything else, to help expedite an investigation like this from the Department of Education?
I don't know what role we would have in that other than looking at their conclusions, because they're evaluating that. We can investigate as well from a state perspective. But I think we're going to let them work through that. There's a significant amount of federal money there that could be at risk if they're not abiding by the law. Kansas has put itself, in statute. There's very clear statutes around that. Men and women's sports, the use of facilities as it pertains to identity versus biology, and I just welcome it.
Okay. Well, very good. Senator Masterson, we appreciate the time. I know you'll be in town tomorrow at Hayward's in Shawnee, 11:30 to 1:30. To show support for a family-owned business recently hit by a tragic crime. All the proceeds will be benefiting that small business, not the campaign. 11:30 to 1:30 at Hayward's, a barbecue in Shawnee. We appreciate it very much. Ty, thanks so much for being here on KCMO.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, there you go. Join them tomorrow if you want to meet the campaign and get some, I think, great barbecue. It doesn't get the attention of, we all know the staple brands in this town, but I think it's right up there with them, John.
Well, it's been there in the past. It used to be at 95th and Antioch. Then it was right here where another barbecue place is now. And so they're in Shawnee at this location. But Hayward's have been here a while, and they moved around, and I've followed them around. So, yeah, absolutely.
You follow them around like you follow around a good fillet of fish, right?
We kind of talk the top 3, but you got to go top 10 when you're talking barbecue in this town.
I agree. Everyone knows the top 3, and, you can debate the order, but Hayward's right up there in that top 10. You're right about that. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, the rock star of the weekend in the news cycle. He was all over the place yesterday, and we'll tell you who he is and why coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Marco Rubio was the star of the weekend, and it wasn't even close. I think the guy did like half a dozen Sunday shows yesterday. He was on Fox News Sunday. We air it here at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sundays on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And I heard him there. Driving home from church, I hear him. And then I see him on CBS and Meet the Press and everywhere, John. He's busy.
Well, it's nice to get your stroke down, right? You come up to the plate and face the heat once and come back around. You're like, I've seen this.
Yeah, he just smoked all of them yesterday. He did a just tremendous job. Especially, this one stood out to me, a back and forth on CBS's Face the Nation. And this ties into something that actually President Trump just posted on Truth Social. I'll get to here in a second. This is some breaking news. But Marco Rubio just calling out CBS's Face the Nation for being so disingenuous in the wake of this Trump-Putin meeting on Friday. We've got a White House summit happening today, 12 o'clock Central Time. And now they're saying it's 12 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So I guess 11 to 3. 4 hours for Trump and Zelensky and the European leaders. Unless, of course, Trump kicks him out early because he doesn't dress appropriately to the White House today. We'll have to see how that plays out. I've got heavy odds on Zelensky wearing a suit today. I mean, he can't make that mistake again, can he? At the very least, I mean, bro, put on a suit, please. So Marco Rubio goes off on CBS after this disingenuous question.
No, there's concern from the Europeans that President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you?
No, it isn't. That's not why they're coming as back. That's not true. No, but that's not that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming.
That February Oval Office
they're coming here tomorrow
in front of television cameras where President Zelensky.
Do you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh, no, I know. And I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but it was Zelensky. We've had more meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. So, but that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous weekend.
And they said President Trump was going to demand a ceasefire.
As early as Thursday. No. But you said that they're coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming here tomorrow. Oh, this is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal. We've been working with these people for weeks on this stuff. They're coming here tomorrow because they chose to come here tomorrow. We invited them to come. We invited them to come. The president invited them to come.
He's not wrong there. Now, is there an element to that that's probably at play? Sure. I don't deny that. But at the same time, you think that these European leaders are showing up here at the White House today unannounced or uninvited because they're going to make sure that Zelensky doesn't get screwed? Come on. Yeah, Trump's going to have people in his home that he doesn't want to have in his home, right? I know it's our house technically, but you get the point. He's living there for now. Come on. This is like they make this stuff up because it gets them excited. It gets some of these media folks excited to make up these narratives in their minds that the European leaders are here to stand between Trump and Vladimir Putin screwing over the little guy Zelensky.
They all sit around bumming out, and then suddenly a little 20-watt light bulb goes on over one of them's head, and they come up with stuff like this, and then they're all, oh, yeah!
Oh, this is right on, John. You're right.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
This is what they are, man. And it continued between Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and CBS's Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation.
But the president told those European leaders last week that he wanted a ceasefire. The president went on television, said he would walk out of the meeting if Vladimir Putin didn't agree with one. He said there would be severe consequences if he didn't agree to one. He said he'd walk out in 2 minutes. He spent 3 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and he did not get one. So there's
because
some
obviously things happened during that meeting. Well, because obviously look, our goal here is not to stage some production for the world to say, oh, how dramatic, he walked out. Our goal here is to have a peace agreement, to end this war, okay? And obviously we felt, and I agreed, that there was enough progress, not a lot of progress, but enough progress made in those talks to allow us to move to the next phase. If not, we wouldn't be having Zelensky flying all the way over here. We wouldn't be having all the Europeans coming all the way over.
That is exactly right by Marco Rubio. And the way that it's set up by Margaret Brennan is Trump said he was going to walk out if he didn't have a peace deal in his hands. So here's what would have happened. If Trump had walked out after 2 minutes, what would they be talking about yesterday?
Taco Tuesday.
Yep. Tacos and, oh my gosh, he wasted all this time. He flew all the way over there. Look at the carbon emissions that were wasted, right? It would have, oh man, we're destroying the planet. He flew there for 2 minutes and he walked out. He's not serious about ending this war. He wants more people to die. He's super emotional. That's what they would have done if he actually turned around after 2 minutes and walked out of that meeting. You know that and I know that.
There needs to be adults in the room.
Yep. They had it all mapped out. Tails I win, heads you lose. There was not a narrative that could have come out of that thing realistically on Friday where they wouldn't have said Trump's a loser. Now, I'm not sitting here saying it was like the greatest meeting ever and it went perfectly and everything's going to happen that we want to have happen. I don't know. Nobody knows. But at least there are conversations taking place. We're moving the ball ahead, moving the ball down the field, to use a sports analogy. We're closer to something than we were a month ago or certainly a year ago when, the last guy was hanging around the White House. Come on, man. So we got that going. At least there's conversations happening. And to Marco's point, he goes, listen, things came out of that meeting that lead us to believe a deal may be possible. Now we're spending time and resources on trying to have that deal happen because 2 million people have been killed in this war, and it's time for it to end.
I'm kind of thinking the perfect meeting is no such thing. The perfect meeting never existed, right?
Well, exactly.
Perfect meeting, perfect murder doesn't exist.
This is what Trump just posted 5 minutes ago on Truth Social, and it ties into this very conversation. He writes here, I'm totally convinced that if Russia raised their hands and said, quote, we give up, we concede, we surrender, and we will give Ukraine and the great United States of America, the most revered, respected, and powerful of all countries ever, Moscow and St. Petersburg, and everything surrounding them for 1,000 miles, the fake news media and their Democrat partners would say that this was a bad and humiliating day for Donald J. Trump and one of the worst days in the history of our country.
They would, because if that's what Russia wanted, they'd say, Russia got their way.
Yeah.
Trump let Putin, his buddy, have his way.
He adds here, but that's why they are fake news and the badly failing radical left Democrats. Thank you for your attention to this matter, he puts on there. Oh, my gosh. He's right. He is right. My goodness, you cannot like the guy. You can say you didn't vote for him, but you're going to tell me that this is not progress? This is not a step in the right direction? Come on, take off the TDS glasses for a second. Just a second. And analyze this and admit that while it may not come to some peaceful conclusion, the conversations being had right now are indisputably steps in the right direction and encouraging for everybody who wants to see a conclusion to this deadly war and peace for the worst war we've seen since World War II in Europe. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, crime continues to impact Kansas City. Is there a solution that we haven't yet considered? We'll talk about it next.
Kansas City's place to talk. KCMO.
No, you can't do it. You cannot go after parents of kids who commit crimes. It sounds good on paper until you start digging a little bit. So you just heard John mention the top of the hour news there that for the second weekend in the last 3 weekends, we are dealing with the death of a child on the streets of Kansas City, Missouri. This time it's a 14-year-old named Tiandre Gibson who was killed just south of Bannister Road, 12:15 in the morning on Sunday. Now, why the heck a 14-year-old kid is roaming the streets of Kansas City or anywhere at 12:15 in the morning is a separate conversation. But this young man was killed early on Sunday morning, and there was another girl who was shot who was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. We don't have her name, but she also was under the age of 16. So, we have rampant violent crime that is happening with young people in and around not just Kansas City, but all over the nation. You're seeing the crime, especially the violent crime. I mean, look at what happened with Sean Brady, right? The chef in Brookside who looked out the window. He saw that 2 young kids were basically stealing from his vehicle. He went out and confronted them, and one of them shot and killed him. Those were minors as well. You had, very young people involved in the Chiefs Super Bowl parade shooting too. So you're seeing this crime involving younger and younger people. And a lot of that, to me, stems from COVID. A period of time in this country when we had young, vulnerable people home with parents oftentimes who were working 2-3 jobs, oftentimes in homes where people didn't have 2 parents to begin with, and the one stability they had in their lives were taken away from them, and that was school. And we did it to maybe save a 92-year-old lady sitting somewhere in a nursing home. At least that's what we were told. So we screwed a whole generation of young people, and many young people who were the most vulnerable, not young people where mom could stay home with the kids and try to teach them on the laptops and the iPads and things like that. The most vulnerable in our culture and in our society were hurt by authoritarian COVID policies that really didn't do anything, but were supposedly intended to protect mostly those people who were already approaching the finish line. Some of the worst public policy this country has ever seen. And I think we're paying the price right now because a lot of these young people got involved in lives of crime. So now, fast forward, and we're seeing this happen. I'll give you just a quick example in Kansas City. In 2014, Kansas City had 9 homicides of kids under 17 years old. Excuse me, it was 5 homicides of those under the age of 17. That number this year is 9. Last year it was 18. The year before that was 19. So that's 46 homicides of children in Kansas City over the last 2.5 years. Go back 11 years, the number was 5 total. And this is happening in every major American city. So this morning, this came up on the text line, and somebody texted in, and I didn't read it at the time, but I wanted to bring it up now to you at 9:08. Pete, time to start charging the parents. There are some counties, including recent ones in Georgia and New Jersey, that are going to start doing this. There's a huge problem in certain areas, and the root issue needs to be addressed. Parents need to wake up and take accountability. It sounds good. Like these parents are letting their kids out at 12:15 in the morning. Shame on them. Don't get me wrong. Parenting is a major part of the problem. But it's not always the problem. We've all been dopey kids before. I'm not saying we're out hanging out at 12 in the morning at 16 years old or 14 years old, in the case of this kid over the weekend, and hanging around lowlives with guns. But we all have done really stupid things as kids. That's part of being a young person. You're really going to put that on the parents every single time? How do we know that this kid's mother didn't check in on him at 11:30 at night, make sure he was in his room, he sneaks out the window? Like, where do you draw that line? And then how do you prove that? Also, if you're the parents in that situation, You got legal ramifications. You got people who suddenly then have to go to court. They got to hire lawyers. They're probably, a life of poverty as is. Who's going to represent them? How do they defend themselves? And you create a whole nother set of headaches for very vulnerable populations in this country. It sounds good on paper, and I don't disagree that parenting is a major problem. We need stability in the home. But this is not as easy or as black and white as charge the parents and it fixes everything. You have major problems in the household to begin with, and that's how we get here. That's how we end up in this very situation.
It excuses the responsibility of the individual, which is our main thing, right? Look, the kid did, my parents would have told me not to go out. If I sneak out, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Right? So somehow you'd have to set up some kind of system where somebody's a habitual offender, blah, 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 create all that rigmarole. How about we just, make the kids responsible? If anything, it's this, they're 14, don't say anything. No.
Charge them as adults.
I think we need to look at that end of it.
Absolutely. Now, in New Jersey, they got a lot of attention. Gloucester Township recently passed an ordinance that could hold parents financially liable with potential fines or jail time for their kids' involvement in certain offenses. This is going to kill, no pun intended, the communities that supposedly it's intended to help. You're going to have a bunch of poor people, bunch of single moms whose kids are running rampant all over the streets, and now they're going to have to go to basically court and try to defend themselves from fines and jail time. They're going to be losing jobs, and their kids are knuckleheads. And they know that. Many of them know that. But, man, you're not solving the problem here by doing this. This ordinance in New Jersey, which covers 28 specified offenses, including felonies and minor infractions like vandalism, targets parents who fail to prevent their children from breaking the law. I mean, you want to talk about a gray area of all gray areas? Fail to prevent their children from breaking the law? Come on. And then you're also going to get this. How many of us, this was not me, but people like this, couldn't stand their parents, and when you're dumb and you're 16 and you're 17, you want to get at mom and dad? Go break the law, and then mom and dad are going to jail. I mean, that's extreme, but don't kid yourself. There are a lot of screwed up kids who will potentially take advantage of something like that. This is as simple as taking care of criminals on the streets and low-level offenders as well. Okay? We don't slap people on the wrist for dealing drugs that we don't consider to be all that offensive anymore. I mean, no. We uphold the law in Kansas City and around the country, and we're not going to slap you on the wrist anymore, and we're going to go after you, and we're going to go after your friends, and you're going to see your buddy who's 16 get charged for something as an adult, and you might think twice about a life of crime when you're 15 years old. You just might do it. Let's go to Wes in Gladstone. Wes, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Yeah, charging people with failure to prevent your kid from committing a crime, that sounds like you're infringing on somebody's civil rights, man. I mean, that's just wacko. That's Pete, you're right. It's crazy, man. Now, remember the parents in Michigan who let the kid have the gun and he went to school and shot and killed those people?
Yep.
I think they both got charged, right? But there was actually some meat on the bones of that charge, okay? But just charging a parent because your kid committed a crime, that's almost like the state being able to take over the parenting of your kids.
Yeah, but here's the other problem I have with even in the Michigan case, and you're right, there was more meat on that bone because the kid had all these issues. They gave him access to weapons. Even that one I struggle with because it's like, man, you could find a lot of situations where, while that was a school shooting, so it always gets more attention when you talk about a school shooting in a suburban-ish area. It just draws the headlines. When you talk about gang-related shootings inside of, like, let's say urban cores, there also are mass shootings happening involving kids, And did the parents know that there were access to weapons for those kids? Like, where do you draw that line? My fear with that is that you're picking and choosing, in some cases, based on what draws headlines and what demographics make headlines, and that's not a good situation either.
Well, I'm kind of remembering the Michigan case now, where I think it was the principal or somebody really failed too. The kids should not have been there, right? And I don't think they got charged, So if you're going to get the parents, who else was a contributor in a crime, right? So it does open a huge can of worms.
And that's my fear. And that's exactly my fear with that, Wes. Thank you.
Yep.
The text line is 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on KCMO. Pete, there are bad parents, but they cannot be charged with what their stupid kids are doing. We pay cops to do what needs to be done. That's right. We have a justice system for that, for kids. And guess what? If we think it rises to the level of charging them as an adult, that's what we should do. But you start going after parents, man, and that is a whole can of worms, as Wes said, that I want nothing to do with.
We quoted Reagan last week about, right? We've got to stop thinking about every time a crime's committed that society's to blame, right?
Yep, and that's exactly what this would be. Because where do you draw that line? If only you had a better first-grade teacher, it might be A-okay. It might just work out absolutely fine. 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio on the phones and also on the text line. Let's go to Blue Springs. Alfonso, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
I had something similar like that in high school. I went to high school in Colorado, and my school had open campus, and I skipped class all the time. And they told my mom, they gave her a warning, if I skipped again, they were going to charge her with the crime for me skipping. So it was like that out there in Colorado in the 90s.
Charge her with a crime, or what do you mean? The school can't charge her with a crime?
No, the city would charge her with a truancy crime for me skipping school.
Oh.
It was in the city I grew up in, yeah. And we had open campus. I go to my buddy's house and play Madden all day. I didn't like social studies. She told him, hey, if you're going to charge me, you're going to take him with you. So that woke me up. She was getting rid of it. I was going to the state if she getting charged with a crime.
Well, that's
so
let's be honest. What got you to come around is because you were potentially going to face consequences. If it was just her, you might have kept playing Madden.
Yep. And she was serious about it. She said, I'm not getting a legal system for you. She said that y'all can take him with her.
So you're not a fan of this then? Because you do think that the person has to be held responsible.
Yeah, because my kids are knuckleheads. I was a knucklehead. I ran with a bunch of knucklehead kids at 14, 15 years old. If we would have got pulled over in the car, the stuff they had in the car, I would have been getting felonies. And my mom had no idea about it.
Mm-hmm. What Madden were you playing?
Madden 94.
Madden 94? Oh, geez. You're older than you sound, Alfonso. All right. Madden 94. Okay. I was going to look up who was on the cover, but that was when Madden was actually on the cover of his own video game back in 94.
Yeah.
All right, Alfonso. Thank you, my man. I appreciate it. There you go. He might have been playing that on PS1 back in the heyday, too. Jeez. Okay. All right. It's 9:18. We are monitoring, obviously, what's going to be a huge day in Washington, D.C. Zelensky, multiple European leaders are there for what will be a several-hour meeting that we're going to have covered for you here on 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. In the meantime, coming up, last time Zelensky was at the White House, it may have been the biggest news story of the year thus far. And if you want to have a chuckle at some of those highlights or lowlights, we'll remind you how that went down coming up next.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
How did it go last time Vladimir Zelensky showed up in the White House? The summit today is happening from 11 to 3 Central Time, 12 to 4 Eastern Time. Hopefully it goes 4 hours and Zelensky's not getting booted. I really hope that the guy shows up in a suit today. It's a no-brainer. We put up some videos this morning on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Find us there at KCMO Talk Radio. I've got it at a minus 350 odds. Zelensky's got a suit on today. I probably should have doubled that to minus 700, but I got to make it an attractive bet. Minus 350 to win $1 on Zelensky showing up in a suit. I mean, he could surprise me because sometimes I think he's a little too proud, I guess I would say, John.
I got him down for the tuxedo T-shirt thing.
Oh, God. All right. Well, last time he showed up, in case you need a reminder on what that was like in the spring, didn't go well for Zelensky.
I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you what,
that
what
wasn't with me.
Means.
That was with a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
That was with
Obama.
President. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful.
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that.
Oh, my goodness. That's the last time Zelensky was in the White House. It can only get better from there. I'm going to start using that line once someone asks me in the hallways, salespeople or whatever, what if this? What if a bomb drops on your head? That's what I'm going to start using out of that Trump moment. Now, he said there about people asking for a ceasefire. Where are the Ukrainian people actually at? We have new polling on that. We'll share it with you, and our caller of the day is coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
From the nation's heartland, it's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
It's very simple why Donald Trump gets an A+ for his meeting with Putin on Friday. And it's got nothing to do with what comes out of it. It's the fact that we are having the conversation on trying to possibly wind down the worst war in Europe since World War II, which is a conversation we were really not having a month, 2 months, 6 months, or a year ago. So for that reason alone, it gets an A+. Yeah, I guess in a perfect world, you could have sat there and said, well, he didn't get any concessions. Okay, but the fact that we now have Zelensky meeting today at the White House with European leaders suggests there's a further conversation to have. It's that simple. You don't need to be some expert on foreign policy to understand that ongoing conversations are a good thing. And the fact that, the best part of the whole meeting, by the way, was when Trump had those B-2s fly over the head of Putin right as they're walking down the red carpet. The same B-2s that, of course, take out Iranian leaders, and a nice little reminder to old Vlad that you want to talk about the biggest, baddest actors on the planet, buddy? That's us. I don't think he was trying to give Putin the Arrowhead Stadium experience before kickoff of a big game. I think it was a reminder to say, don't screw with us, buddy. That's why the meeting gets an A+. And that conversation very early this morning led to our caller of the day.
Hello? It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day. On KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7.
913-408-7957. We're rolling on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Libby and Waldo, go ahead. You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Oh, Pete, I agree with you on so many levels. And I also was telling John, I'm going to speak out here. I am not a communist, by the way. I am a Republican.
Not a communist.
I want to tell you.
Thank you for that preface.
Okay, that's no problem. I want to tell you, though, I was impressed with what Putin did after that meeting. And here's what it was. In any type of mediation, and I had to study mediation as part of my master's in counseling, so this was a real big point with me. The thing he did that brought a lot of things together is that he referenced the fact that we are neighbors and that we have burial plots for Russian pilots and U.S. pilots in his country, with our flag flying in his country and the Russian flag flying in his country, as well as in our country. We have the Russian flag and the United States flag over the same people that fought in World War II. And I think that when people realize you've got to find a way to have a conflict resolution, I think by the fact that he said, hello, neighbor, when he met President Trump on the red carpet or whatever, I think that we're neighbors, and we're not always going to like our neighbors. And I also think, Pete, I wish that we could just stop the name calling. I don't know. I just wish we could stop it. I mean, I don't think it helps. It's just aggressive and it's ugly. Yeah, I know what he's done. Trust me, I know what he's done. I've been following it for years.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Libby. I think what Putin did there, he just kind of was also trying to mush up Trump a little bit.
You're right.
I mean, he's. Right. I watched that whole press conference, and Putin spoke more than Trump. And frankly, I thought Putin came off like an out-of-touch, complete and utter scumbag. That's how I think.
Okay.
I don't care that he's our neighbor. I know that, yes, we have troops buried next to each other. This guy has single-handedly, due to a weird fantasy he has for Eastern Ukraine, led to the death of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, including 1 million of his own people, according to reports.
Right. And I don't disagree. I really don't, Pete. I really don't. I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to disagree. I totally get it. I'm just saying that I don't know. Just saying hi, neighbor. I don't know. There was just something about that, and I thought, okay.
Well,
I don't know.
I appreciate you, Libby. Thank you very much for checking in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There you go, Libby, our caller of the day. So, it's not always about agreeing or disagreeing, but it was a smart call. It was thoughtful, And that's why she takes the cake this morning. A lot of good options on a Monday morning. Thanks for joining us on 95.7 FM. Now, something from earlier in the hour. You had Vladimir Zelensky earlier this year go to the White House and insist that his people were not ready for any kind of concessions. They were not ready for a ceasefire. They didn't necessarily want to stop fighting, despite the fact that, according to reports, they've lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers in this war. And if it is a war of attrition, they cannot win. The numbers do not exist for them to win this war if it goes on for another 5 or 10 years. New polling just dropped. Now, you always take the polling with a grain of salt, but this is from CNN. It aired this morning on CNN, talking about where the Ukrainian people are on the issue of trying to figure out a way to end and wind down this war that's been going on for 3.5 years. And here's the fast talker himself, this guy, Harry Enton, on CNN.
There have been some absolutely major shifts. The idea that Ukraine's going to achieve complete victory, that idea has collapsed within Ukrainian society. What are we talking about here? Ukrainians on the war versus Russia. You go back to 2022, the start of the war. Fight until Ukraine wins. Look at this. The vast majority, about 3/4, 73% agreed with that position. Negotiate to end the war as soon as possible. Only 22%. Look at where we are now. It's a complete flip. It's the inverse. Now 69% want to negotiate to end the war as soon as possible, compared to just 24% who want to fight until Ukraine wins. That's a 49-point drop in this position. Now, of course, negotiating to end the war as soon as possible, that's a bit more nuanced, right? Ukrainians don't want to agree to all of Russia's demand, but I think the idea of even there being some territory that would be not formally recognized as being given that Russia could in fact stay in, that does have majority support, but the idea of formal recognition of Russia's demands, absolutely not.
All right. Why do you think that opinion has changed to the extent that it has?
All right, stop. What a dumb question. Maybe 800,000 deaths? Maybe that's why? I don't need to hear the rest of the audio. The point is, the polling has totally flipped. And that's human nature, right? You start a war, you get attacked. Let's be clear, you get attacked. And you're like, we're fighting this thing. We're not going anywhere, because you're proud of your country. That's normal. That's natural. You'd expect that from the Ukrainians. 3.5 years later, part of your country's totally war-torn. You've lost 800,000 soldiers. And suddenly it's like, okay, yeah, it's time to figure out a way to end this war and ramp it down. That's the why. I don't need to hear that explained by CNN. It's just obvious. They're worn out. They've lost a lot of people. I mean, you look at Ukraine's population. It's only 38 million people. And, if you're talking about 800,000 out of 38 million, I mean, you're talking about 2% of your population. To compare that to the United States, we've got 300 million people in this country. That'd be like us losing 6 million people in a war. That's the equivalent based on our population. That's insane. It's no wonder they want it to end. And that's where I think Zelensky's got to be in a different spot right now than he was a year ago or even a few months ago when he came to the White House. And he had more of that tough guy mantra. It's like, bro, you don't hold the cards you think you hold. Your own people, according to at least this poll with CNN, are done. You've got to figure out an exit plan. That doesn't mean that you acquiesce to all of Putin's demands. To be clear, Putin's the evil guy here. But your tough guy shtick has got to go. Coming up next on KCMO, can Bud Light save its brand with this person who they may end up hiring? We'll tell you the recent reports on that front to wrap up the show. Coming up next on KCMO.
Stream Mundo in the Morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
Bud Light has not recovered. Not sure it ever will, especially with the report we gave you on Friday that Americans are drinking less alcohol than they have in the 90 years it's been tracked by Gallup. But they may try to save themselves with Sydney Sweeney. This is actually a brilliant move if they do it. Daily Mail reported that the blonde bombshell could net $10 million in a Bud Light deal that is currently under consideration. My goodness, Sydney, go get the money, girl. Go get it. All right? Go take it. I would have no issue with her doing that. I might even buy Bud Light for the first time since the Dylan Mulvaney drama of a couple of years back.
Normalize the bulge.
I might do it.
We are normalizing the bulge.
I just might have to do it. You know, I was never a Bud Light guy, but in football season, I'd buy, usually a case when they'd have those cool Chiefs cans or whatever. I was a sucker for those, but I've held strong the last couple of years. I haven't done it. I was always a Coors Light guy through and through. I got not hooked. I'm not like drinking Coors Light for lunch, but in terms of my preferred domestic light beer, when I was a young man in Woodward, Oklahoma, that was Coors Light country out in western Oklahoma, Panhandle area. So I kind of, accepted Coors Light as my light domestic beer of choice. And I've held on to that. But I would buy a Bud Light case now and then, especially during football season. I haven't done it. I've held strong on that front. Haven't gotten one if I've been at Arrowhead Stadium either. I've searched far and wide and gotten something else. So you hire Sydney Sweeney, though, I'll jump back in on occasion with a Bud Light here and there. I won't say no to it. So we'll see. But this is a smart move. This is basically Bud Light potentially admitting that their marketing strategies of recent years have been a complete and utter failure. And what would you know? Guys that drink Bud Light are attracted to women who look like Sydney Sweeney. Oh, my goodness. Can you believe it, John?
I don't have any shopping shorts myself, so that'd be another thing. I don't think any of us have a pair of shopping shorts.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that'd be good, man. That'd be good. We'll see if Bud Light's able to figure out what they're doing or if they're going to keep doing the same old thing all over again.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
I'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Now, speaking of light beer, I did something yesterday. We were out and about with the girls, running a couple errands. We had to run into a grocery store to pick up a couple of things for dinner. And I saw this beer, and I had never really thought about buying it. And I tried it yesterday. Garage beer. The Kelsey Bros beer. Anybody had it yet? Have you guys tried it yet?
I've seen it, but I haven't bought it yet.
Okay. John, I assume you have not tried the
No,
garage
sir.
beer.
I've not seen it, or I might try it the first time I see it.
Yeah, I just was like, you know what, whatever. I had a moment of weakness, bought a six-pack, figured I'd try one yesterday, and if not, I'd dump it all down the drain. Wasn't all that expensive, considering it was a six-pack of 16-ounce cans. And it is a light beer, 95 calorie per 12 ounces. That's how they brand it. It had decent flavor. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10 if I was grading it. I'm not going to probably run back to it anytime soon, but I'll finish the six-pack, okay? I don't know if that says more about me, but I was like, okay, it's got a different taste. It has some flavor to it for a light beer, but I'm not running back and buying more. That's how I would describe
so
it.
you didn't come in here with one for me, Kevin, and Mark.
No.
Hey, guys. Hey.
No, I didn't want to give it to you guys warm anyway. But, it's one of those beers where if I was at a party and it was, one of the last beers in the bottom of the cooler, I would grab it. I'm not going to not drink it. But if there's a lot of options in the cooler, I probably would not go out of my way to have one.
Yeah, I just don't get the idea that Jason and Travis worked on this for years to come up with a secret recipe. So I'll just assume it's a novelty brand like Billy Beer, and it's just like what you can grow on your doorknob. Make your own beer. We'll just put a nice label on it.
And I totally knew that I was getting screwed buying it. I knew what I was doing.
Expectations are minimal.
Exactly. I was like, you know what? Fine. These guys are, they are what they are. This is not some beer that they've been thinking about for 20 years. They're making a buck off their fame, whatever. But let me try it. I figured it would make...
Hey, it's no buckhorn, but
I get a little content out of it. That's what I figured too. All right.
Yeah.
I paid for the content and got a couple of beers out of it.
Well, and you got to put the empties right up next to your Patrick Mahomes cereal box and different things, right?
No, trust me, there's none of that. Kate, with her Maha movement, is all on the anti-cereal wave.
No cereal or
no
certain
cereal.
cereals?
Well, only the organic kind of cereal.
Yeah, certain cereals.
She was showing me this on her app. Oh, what is the name of that app? I told you guys about it a few weeks back. I'll put it up on social media once I remember it, but it grades all the food based on the barcodes, based on health from 0 to 100. And all these cereals are like 6 out of 100.
The
it's
worst
crazy.
one automatically deploys hazmat.
Yeah.
Look out.
I mean, I pulled one out of the shelf yesterday. I'm like, whoa, this Special K pumpkin spice cereal. I was like, oh,
I figured that'd be okay.
This
right?
kind of looks good. She scans it on her little app. 7 out of 100. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, I wasn't really dying to eat it. I was just kind of curious. And then this organic Cheerio that she buys for the girls is like a 60 out of 100.
So
like,
100
wow.
out of 100 is your ideal, right?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So 7.
7.
Wow.
7 out of 100.
Yikes.
I'm like, whoa, okay. I hope Special K is not coming on for an endorsement anytime soon. That'll be awkward.
Can you scan the garage beer?
You could scan beer.
Okay. I was curious.
I just never drink beer and think that it's doing anything good for my health.
Yeah.
But I suppose you could do it, Mark, if you really want to feel bad about yourself before you crack open the can.
Nah.
Yeah. Don't please just
I'll
don't.
just drink it.
Yeah, just drink it and enjoy yourself, okay?
Beer is actually healthy.
Life's too short, is it?
Monks will live on that for months. What's the Casey Beer Co. guys tells about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they brew a brand, and then the monks it has enough nutrients, greens, and stuff. I'm sure
that's totally true.
I'm sure the end of 30 days.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're not copying the Bible, down there, right? Reproducing it handwritten.
Yuka app. Thank you on the text line.
There
Yuka,
you go.
YUKA. Download the app. Download the KCMO app. Keatsman Uncancel is next.